Guys, what in the world? I wake up today, I check Twitter, and we're back to seeing bombs on the timeline. I take one glance and see this. What? Hecz has bought back OpTic Gaming. This is the first sale of a team in the CoD League's history, already just 1 year into the league, and it's Hecz buying back OpTic. That is a turn of events, to say the least, so let's talk about it. The second I saw this, there was massive questions that came to mind right away. What does this mean for Hecz? What does this mean for OpTic Gaming? What does this mean for the LA spot in the CDL specifically? What does this mean for the Huntsmen and the name of the Huntsmen? How is this going to play out? What does this mean for Hecz and his role with NRG? How will this all play out? And that's what we've got to sort through right now. So the article is from Kevin Hitt at the Esports Observer, and they're reporting that the deal is already done, that Hecz, separate from NRG, has purchased the brand of OpTic Gaming and the LA spot from Immortals as an organization and has reacquired it. What? And the article also importantly states that the acquisition of the Los Angeles CDL spot by Rodriguez, who according to sources intends to divest to interested esports organizations, still needs league approval. So the league still has to come through and approve the transaction as a whole, relying supposedly on Hecz selling the Los Angeles CDL spot to an interested organization. So of course the question immediately goes to, who is interested in this CDL spot? Who could buy this Los Angeles spot off the rip? And I think a lot of people, a lot of fans, especially OpTic fans, immediately would go to Nadeshot and 100 Thieves as hopefully the team that would buy this spot. There's not really any evidence towards that. Realistically, what most likely would happen is that Rise Nation would be the team that would buy this spot in Los Angeles. They showed the most interest. They're a legacy brand in Call of Duty. They hired Pac-Man to be their general manager. Realistically, that one makes the most sense for them to purchase this LA spot. But man, 100 Thieves joining the CDL with Hecz reacquiring OpTic Gaming, now that is juicy, to say the least. But realistically, I would put my money in the Rise Nation basket for them to join the CDL. Otherwise, it could be an esports org that we haven't talked about yet that would immediately try to buy up the LA spot. But all things considered, that is incredibly interesting. But I think naturally, the next question to ask is, what is Hecz going to do with OpTic Gaming? Because the article states that the deal is separate from NRG, which means realistically, you don't expect NRG to then become OpTic Gaming, like the Chicago OpTic or Chicago OpTic Gaming. So what would that mean necessarily? It's hard to say how that would play out and what that would look like. Back in June of last year, the news was, Immortals bought OpTic for 100 million from Infinite, of course, who Hecz had sold to Infinite way back before that. And so all of these things get together makes it kind of confusing about what Hex's plan is with OpTic at this point. Right now, it doesn't really feel like the pieces are in place for this to make a lot of sense, considering all the content creators are signed to NRG right now, and Scump and Formal are signed to NRG. So what is OpTic going to be from here on out? There are just a ton of questions with how that's going to play out for Hecz. Because if he still wants to be a co-CEO of NRG, then how is he going to be able to run and build his own separate esports organization while working for another prominent esports organization? It's kind of murky about how that will play out long term, whether he would have to leave NRG or whether he would sell the name rights to NRG to use for the CDL potentially. But then you've got to rebrand the Huntsmen, who've already been successful this season, and I feel like that's not the easiest move to make, even though you're rebranding to OpTic Gaming, and that would be a little bit confusing for fans who are just joining in now. So there are a lot of weird angles that you can take towards this news, and there's not really any official news besides just speculation and rumors at this point about how it could play out for Hecz, OpTic Gaming, and NRG, and the LA spot as a whole. I mean, my best guess for what happened is that Hecz heard that Immortals was willing to sell their spot and inherently sell their name, and so Hecz, kind of swooped in to make that deal happen, to then intend to resell the organization to someone else. I mean, he may not even have a plan for OpTic Gaming at this point if it's not directly related with NRG, and he just bought it back to make sure that he can have that in his pocket to then start working with it again here in the next year or so. That's very possible. Or he just ends up selling the name of it to NRG, but I feel like Hecz wants more for OpTic Gaming than just to be a name of a team in the CDL. Realistically, if he was doing it on his own, I would imagine he would take the Atlanta FaZe route, where where he would just insert name here like Denver OpTic and still have OpTic Gaming as the overarching brand to work with, like what FaZe has done. I think that makes by far the most sense for Hecz in the long term, but that doesn't make sense for him in the short term, considering Scump and Formal are signed to NRG, all the content creators are signed to NRG, and he's the co-CEO of NRG currently. So I would love to hear what your opinions are down below. Drop your comments, drop a like, subscribe if you guys really enjoyed the video, share it if you really enjoyed the video. But of course, we'll be sticking with this and throwing out updates as soon as we hear more about what Hex's potential plans are for OpTic Gaming and for NRG and for himself. And with the CDL LA spot, there's a lot of potential variables that could get really, really exciting when we hear some more information. But as always, guys, I'm your boy SalvationsElite. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and we will see you next time. I'm out.